This is Anna Achimowicz from Rock Dance Theater, checking in back with you. It's been a little while since I've seen all of you guys, but today is a very special day, 26th of March, over here on this planet, somewhere on Earth at a non-disclosed location. Hello, everybody, wherever you are checking in from today, be it on Twitch, on YouTube, on Facebook, wherever you take in your live streams. And today, welcome to No More Blood or Tears, which is the special evening event for the untold origin story of Rock Dance Theater that I'm going to be telling tonight. So you might as well sit back and enjoy a little bit of storytelling. I am prepped with my regular caffeine, which is what I'm celebrating with today. So welcome. Here we all are. And if you are tuning in, guys, before we start all of this, I wanted to thank all of you so much for supporting all of these years. And it's been already 4. Can you imagine? So thank you so much for all of the support, all of the comments. And you guys know the drill, buying tickets and coming over to the events, heading out to festivals, to gigs and events. And quite recently, also supporting all of the online stuff, quarantine jams, merch, getting the goodies, all of the live experiences. So that is greatly, greatly appreciated as well, especially in isolated quarantine times as well. So without further ado, guys, slap that subscribe and like and follow and share to a friend or foe button, and let's get started. Today, basically, we're going to have like a very first chapter that I'm going to be telling, because some of the stories you guys might already know, and for everyone that is brand new tuning in with us over here at Rock Dance Theater, the first chapter is going to be about some of the untold stories, some of the small twists and story facts that haven't been kind of out there. I don't really tell them that often. Not many people actually ask in interviews or podcasts. So I figured, hey, I might as well read you guys out a little preface that I actually have been writing. I've been writing a memoir, a personal like autobio, if you will, since 2016. And this is one of the many chapters. And I always laugh that the book is never going to be published because the stories keep coming in. Story of my life, right? Everything keeps rolling like in rock and roll. So I figure I might as well share that a little bit with you guys as well. So let's start, shall we? Here we go. No one is ever really given the right artistic path. While for once it comes at a gradual and steady pace, for others it's quite often an abrupt twist of events, a turn that you would never see coming. Almost coincidental, it might seem. For me in Rock Dance Theater, it has been quite a bit the second one. And as Untold Story goes, before RDT, the acronym for Rock Dance Theater, has been even a thing, a year earlier, a very intuitive piece that I staged was called First Degree of Separation. Now, I'll get to the main story and the next chapter in a little bit, but first things first. I've never actually played a music instrument before in my life, and not until even I was 29, believe it or not. So for some of you, a stage reason for being already 20 years as a choreographer, as a stage performer, producing and working professionally in the business, if you will, could be a reason to search for other inspirations, to search for other things that might either occupy your time or inspire you. And it happened to be electric guitar. So call it fate, call it coincidence, call it as you will. One morning, it called upon me to pick up the guitar and play. And 26th of March, which happens to be actually today, already happened 4 years ago. And it was one of those sleepless nights while scrolling over YouTube videos, as you do, right? I came across Steven Tyler from Aerosmith. Needless to retell a very long short story, 7 hours later, I was a different person. I was actually myself, what I've been looking for maybe this whole time. It actually found me. Rock and roll found me. And at the time, I didn't even know it was what it was called all these years. And the interesting part of it was also that I didn't know that either at the time. It was actually the night of the 26th going into the 27th, because it was bloody morning, 7 a.m., the sun was already rising. It was Steven Tyler's birthday. So for sure, he had a hell of a blast to make a party all the way coming over to my place. And I actually realized, like, setting up the stream for you guys just yesterday, that it was in this very apartment that we are in right now where it all took place. Steven's visit, picking up my grandfather's guitar, learning later that I actually was trying to learn the very first riff on the electric guitar that was actually the bass line of Sweet Emotion. Now, as all origin stories goes, one sort of those signals that you might not even realize at the time, it's kind of a signal that has been following you for quite a while, you don't even really acknowledge it at the time. It was already late 2015, of the year 15 going into the 2016 season. I was choreographing a piece and a staging that I was working quite a while already with my friend Johannes over in Austria, and we were kind of sharing and spitballing some fragments, some inspirations, some staging ideas to put it all together. And that was actually the era of a previous chapter of my creative life. That was 2011 through 2015. I was working under my name Anna Achimowicz, quite a bit outside of Paris, in France, assisting a very underground and a very alternative, if you will, choreographer called Thierry Verger. That's also a different chapter that I will dig into a little bit later. But it was one of these things where in the field of physical dance, of contemporary dance and choreography, overall the physical theater community, somewhere deep inside, I felt that I needed a change, that I needed an invisible kind of partner that was also at my attention, but I quite could not pinpoint what it was. It was always reaching further. It was always extending. And for a quite prolonged time, if not forever, that was rock and roll. And way before I even knew how it was called and what it was actually as a lifestyle, as a culture, I just kind of realized, hey, there was basically running through my veins very early on. So the whole show, First Degree of Separation, it was a very intuitive kind of abstract piece, human body manipulated by an input audio cable reacting to wherever it was kind of placed and put and, placed into contact. And that kind of created this crackling noises that in contact with the skin created a certain reaction. So the first part was the manipulation part. The other element then was transformed into this woman model, temporary kind of restricted character, if you will, wearing a very narrow dress, just appearing in circles of light, kind of following the trace and path of a labyrinth, if you will. Then that going into kind of a liberated military mode, if you will, between these isolated moments and the stage being completely isolated and limited and quite restrictive with the light spots and all. And then all of a sudden, from this warrior scene with the costume change and like everything blowing up all of a sudden and twisting 180, all of a sudden the dynamic and powerful choreography gets stopped by a strobe light, by a very minimalistic thread of sound. It was electric music at the time, kind of resembling a human heartbeat. And this heartbeat started to kind of crackle and break down this body that was, quite honestly, the very first thing that kind of struck me that I was not aware of at the time, that it was an intuitive hidden message behind the body movement, behind the very inspiration of the movement. And I was actually emulating Joe Perry and his whole body move and his body feel with the guitar. And the funniest thing was that actually my Swedish lineup of rock dance theater, my very good friend and guitar player Peter Zager was the only one that kind of cracked that. We had a whole discussion after the piece with the audience. We had like a Q&A, meet and greet, what have you. And that there was actually a question. So what did this last scene resemble? Because that's where the piece kind of ended. And Peter like raised his hand, and he was the only guy that actually broke it down. Now, in choreography and in the field of performing arts that derives from basic human movement, like the body is the main language to communicate. Sometimes it's verbal, just like this that we're doing here, but oftentimes it's basically feeling, communicating the world with the body. And it's not that much different. If not, it's exactly the same thing at all, with playing an instrument, with playing a guitar or playing a bass, that it is an extension of your body. It becomes another joint. It becomes an extension of your whole expression. So you cannot really isolate that. And that with Joe's playing, again, the 7 hours later thing, when I kind of stepped back and looked at it, was exactly what fascinated me first. That, of course, at the very end of what is coming out is sound, is music, is Sweet Emotion, or Pink, or I Don't Want to Miss a Thing, or Toys in the Attic, like whichever song, basically that was the primary inspiration. And funny enough, I was writing also the synopsis that was stepping back already subconsciously from the community that I've been over 20 years in. And I don't want to say that producing a show or two so far has been maybe a little bit tiring, maybe exhausting, but it's been quite a long time, ever since I was 11, quite honestly. So I needed something else to kind of fill that next partnership, and it turned out to be a guitar. And since we're talking about rock and roll and the whole blood and tears and sweat included into that, not that any other performing world isn't, because if you're in it for real and you love what you do, that's basically what you're going to encounter. The gnarly part of the business, the exhaustion, the challenge, human relations, basically, things that not often you have absolute control, you yourself as a creator, as a maker. So the interesting part of it is actually 2015. Again, I was writing this program synopsis, and I already had a date to premiere the show, First Degree of Separation. It was over in Stockholm, Sweden, at International Summer Festival. So I already knew that the date was there, but I was still working on the piece with Johannes. And basically, I did not really know why I wrote what I wrote, but in retrospect now, it was kind of a natural transition for me, isolating myself from the world that I've been in for so long. Not that it stopped fascinating me, but I wasn't really so much impressed. I needed fresh blood. I needed something raw, something that would really be exact that I always wanted to create in my shows. This rawness, this dynamic, this authenticity, this will of life and force of kind of breaking the bubble and not following the main rules, be it aesthetic, be it subject matter, be it whatever, which of course is always there. So when it comes to categorizing, mainstream is definitely nothing of the sort that I ever fit in. And I take that actually as my biggest strength. I always try to be exactly the opposite of the mainstream and what was kind of fashionable at the time. Same for music genres, really. So the synopsis that I wrote spoke pretty much about becoming a musician, becoming the other side of the music, the one that is actually creating it, the one that is actually being the body with the extension, with the extra special link, kind of, if you will, because having an instrument that works with your body, and then very much so creating this completely new stage language of interaction with musicians and with the instrument itself, it gives you a whole wider spectrum of potential ideas and possibilities, and then basically creating a completely new language, which is not only kind of hanging there and playing, but you get to do all kinds of things that, if you guys are familiar with my shows and what I do with Rock Dance Theater, it's basically a whole new universe. But coming back to kind of chapter 1 of Blood and Tears connected to rock and roll, oftentimes when we do speak about human relations and people that we work with we meet on our way, we do not plan that. And the twist and the turn that I encountered very early on, way before Rock Dance Theater even was officially named, before I had a name for it, before I actually knew what kind of hit me, was a very first guitar player that kind of came onto my radar, and was kind of the eye opener to, oh, okay, this produces sound. Oh, okay, this is how this mechanism kind of works, and then how similar and different than again the very community of rock and roll, and the things that you do encounter along the way, in terms of, quite honestly, the whole bullshit of the industry, where you do have to kind of navigate and work between venue owners and contracts that are a little bit more complicated and constructed in the way where you have third and fourth and fifth parties, quite honestly, between all of that. So all of that was already very familiar to me from my, let's say, previous 20 years of experience in the field. That never really kind of prepares you for working with people that, quite honestly, for some reason within their own life also struggle, but especially they struggle with addiction. And why I actually chose to talk about this particular matter, because I think it's very much understated. Like, we all like the final effect of the show, and the spotlight and the effortless of the performance, and the performers themselves, but quite often you have no idea what is going behind the scenes, and what is actually happening between all of us working amongst each other as artists, as people that are creative. Some of us happen to be a little more constricted than others. Some of us are very open, but that makes us even more prone to addiction. And at this point, I'm not talking about my own addiction at all, because I happen to be a performer that never really needed drugs, never needed alcohol. Like, I don't do any of that. I don't need it. I'm high as it gets when I get to create and just get high on life and get excited about putting on a stage piece, or just like being in the creative process. But my very first guitar player that I actually worked with had a severe drug and alcohol addiction. And I got to tell you, that's exactly where the blood and tears come in, because if you work from that place where you are controlled by a higher power that is, quite honestly, beyond your control, the exact chemical lie that drugs and alcohol and any addiction, quite honestly, gives you, is that illusion that you do have control. That, let's say, many performers talk about it, that yes, it enhances the way I perform, it enhances the way I play, I can kind of reach my inner whatever, so that it sounds better, it works better. No, it doesn't. What I can tell you, waking up my guitar player almost every single day after a show, after a jam session, or just to travel, to catch a train on time and catch an airplane on time, is living hell. I mean, you can maybe do it once or twice, but when you do it for almost a season and almost a year, trying to work things out, like, when we're talking about professionalism, it's basically, it does not work. And in my case, it was never the case about the partying, about the having fun and all of that. This is, quite honestly, I'm in it for the art. I just live, breathe, and just like exhale that. And why, for me, especially right now in times of the pandemic, where we're all isolated, and quite honestly, I'm going to quote Steve Bailey on that, we are all victims of trauma. Like, our lives have kind of came to a stop. We needed to rapidly adjust and kind of figure out what this extreme situation is, because it is extreme. And of course, there's so many reasons why people do substance abuse, and it's, at some point, it's self-medication. The other part of it is, of course, hey, rock and roll is about all of those, right? We know the magic triad. So basically, one of those elements was kind of a crash course 101, where me having the experience already as a professional on stage, like, it does not work. Hangover does not work if you want to put on a show for 90 minutes or 60 minutes and give everything to the audience and be super physical, be in shape, have control, know what you're doing. And then again, it's people paying for seeing you perform, right? So it's kind of, number one, it's dishonest towards them, and whoever you want to name in history, like we know them, aforementioned Aerosmith guys, you know, Steven, Joe, the Rolling Stones, Motley Crue, you know, every huge band, every huge artist that, quite honestly, right now is lucky to have passed that. They got cleaned up, they got professional help, they got through all of that process. But when you are an individual that kind of, okay, my previous guitar player, I mean, the very first guitar player that I worked with, however talented he was, however fucking stubborn he was at the same time, you know, you could be, when he was around me and on my watch, if you will, no one is babysitting, right? We're supposed to be adults. But when you work with each other and you have that kind of intimacy on the creative process, and also hanging out with each other, you know, having meals together and living together and just like traveling kind of cross country, you do get to know each other on a very close level. And sometimes the closest you get is all of a sudden observing someone at their lowest. And yeah, my first guitar player basically could stay sober for maximum 2 to 3 weeks, and then there was always a reason to slip back. And why I bring this up in isolation right now as a part of No More Blood and Tears is that basically we are all very prone right now to kind of reach for that, because it's not only sedation, it's self-medication, but it's a huge problem when it comes to mental health. To be honest, most of us is kind of doing a show out of our living room, and it is not being talked about, it's not being stated. And I find that a huge problem, because I do see a lot of my friends struggling in the very community and the very business of that. And that's where the danger comes in. That's basically when the next step to addiction coming out of this pandemic and isolation all of a sudden comes from. So this is one of these things that you don't talk about in main, you know, press releases or whatever, not at the time when you're working. I mean, this is not ancient history, basically. It's not back at age 11, when I was doing my first staging and my first pieces, coming back from the States, you know, going into my education and first festivals and first workshops when I was a teen, basically working in the field. That was kind of pre-rock, but it's all around us right now. The most important thing is to kind of talk about it and bring the awareness, because if you don't, someone is going to fall along the way. You know, people die from it. Things get screwed up, people don't show up, gigs don't happen, equipment is being lost. And if I can only mention you the amount of times where I was collecting gear and kind of, you know, protecting everything from being, you know, having beer spilled into that, or just like guitar being broken and amps being screwed up, is I would be probably filthy rich right now if I got $5 off of each of those situations. So this for me is a very crucial kind of element when it comes to us being vulnerable, in the sense not only as human beings, but more so in the performing arts, and especially in rock and roll. We all know it's just around the corner. It's a part of life. That's why, you know, we have the after parties. That's why we have the release parties. There's like whatever it might be, any kind of social situation. So with my experience, of course, it could not last too long. I mean, 8 to 9 to 12 months of kind of that can really whip your ass. And then you kind of realize you do sacrifice yourself, but it's the right thing to do at the time. But if the other side doesn't want help, there's absolutely nothing you can do. I mean, it is being said, I only know this from my friends that have been through addictions. They've made it to the other side. Life is great and good right now, and that is why exactly they have their careers 10, 20, 30 years in, and they're still with us, because as we know, we lost way too many people to addiction in rock and roll, and not only in rock and roll. So basically, step one of recovery or getting any kind of help is acknowledging that you have the problem itself. So for me, I could have worked it out for as long as I could, but then you do realize that you kind of sacrifice yourself, and if you keep trying, you punch a wall, you get bloody hands, you know, your knuckles pretty much get swollen up, and there's nothing else to take from. So that's one of the things I guess I wanted to focus especially on, that the shows that you see, oftentimes you don't see the problems and the struggles and the human nature and the human challenges of it on the other side. So basically the very first collaboration that was kind of out there was was not a bad test drive. And very early on I knew that, okay, if a party is happening or any kind of social situation is happening, it's like, sure, I love to have fun and I love to hang out with people, but I never do it for the rush of the substance. Like, to be honest, adrenaline is the best substance abuse that you can have, and especially the one from a creative process, and especially the one from stage. There's nothing else like it, and nothing is recreating that. And quite honestly, if you want to be a performer, to all of you guys, let's say, that are watching and tuning in as a young performer, as a rock and roller stepping up into the game, know that if you want to do this for real and you want to be a professional, substance abuse doesn't work. It's just, you wake up the next day completely hungover. All of your body, all of your self is basically poisoned still. The toxins are letting out, being metabolized. It's just, it does not work. And me especially, I am very, I don't want to say free control, but when it comes to really feeling your body and having complete awareness of what is happening, like if I do an evolution with a guitar on stage, not being 100% focused, warmed up, prepared, and kind of centered and grounded, I will injure myself, most definitely. And probably I will injure someone in the process, because my leg is not going to pass, somebody's head, my percussionist head, let's say, the 2 centimeters as it should, because I will miss the mark, right? So it just does not work. And a middle ground for it also is pretty short-sighted. Sure, if you do it for the fun, no problem. But if you really think about it as a profession, as a potential thing that you should do for yourself, it's like sooner or later someone is going to make you realize, or you realize it by yourself. So that was one of the things that I wanted to mention. And especially now, also the element that performing arts are still on hold, are still in isolation, is kind of the same story scenario, just the cause of the situation is different. And this is very much a higher power, because we don't have directly power over it. We're just kind of navigating through that and learning to temporarily live our lives differently before we can come back on stage and get to rock out again. So there will be blood, there will be tears, but only the ones of our scraped knees and our bloody fingers, and all of the other reasons that wear and tear induces, but from the shows that we bring on. So again, guys, if you do have people around you, your friends or people that in the industry, in the business, that you do feel that might be having a hard time, just reach out, give them a call, like ask what's up. Don't necessarily invite them to take them out, because socializing is not the best thing. And where I am tuning in right now from, it's actually pretty gnarly COVID-wise. We've hit like over 35K of cases, and kind of like a 3rd or 13th wave. So the best ground is kind of to cover the ground around your neighborhood and just be safe and sane, and kind of lay low and enjoy the live stream and the storytelling. But all right, enough of that. I wanted to bring up a second interesting story that kind of derived from the very first inspiration of reaching for a guitar, and Steven Tyler was the guy to blame, I gotta say. And like many other things in my career, I gotta say that a lot of the tears, if you will, have been kind of created directly, impulsively at the very moment. Like, not many shows that I've done so far have been done very logically thought through. There's nothing cerebral, I gotta say, about performing arts, about shows, because the best ideas, I find that they actually come from within at an instantaneous moment. It's either in a dream or either in a thought, just kind of completely somewhere else, challenged against a hard situation, again, a breakup or a disbandment or any kind of a misagreement with a contract, with a festival. And well, one of the other untold stories is basically I had one performer that I was collaborating with also early 2017, 18. I was working with one performer that was also a choreographer, a singer, songwriter, and I happened to be 2 days prior to our premiere that we were supposed to have. Oh no, it wasn't actually a premiere. It was just one of the regular kind of festival shows, I guess. And we shared a collaboration that was 50-50, a partnership where not only we were taking creative decisions together, we were both working on the booking side of things. We were booking shows into festivals, selling the show, searching for opportunities and all of that. And quite honestly, like I was, I think, on the streets of Stockholm, literally when she called me, and she said she's canceling our show because then she mentioned the reasons. And of course, me coming to a shock that, okay, first of all, where is this coming from? Number two, what happened? Why is this extreme situation taking place at all? And then again, of course, we had this whole long discussion and battle, and well, basically the show was canceled because the organizer, of course, caught in the middle of that, like, why the hell aren't these two performers like coming along? And I was like, I am freaking ready to go. Like, I have no idea. I can even do a modified show and then take some of the scenes out or do an extract or whatever. He didn't go with that. Like, obviously, if you book a show, you want to have the whole experience, the whole thing. Not only the festival pays for that, but also you as a performer. At least that's how I operate. I don't like doing things out of the blue. Of course, along the lines, I had to navigate many times. I had to stage a show within one day, and it did work. It's not my favorite way to do it, but those are extreme situations where really someone gets sick, an injury happens, travel fails, you cannot get to a show, someone else, let's say, meeting you on show date and as your stage partner cannot arrive, like a multitude of reasons. But for that particular reason, it was just her all of a sudden taking the rails, taking decisions into her own hands, and for God knows what reasons. Like, up until today, I do not really know the motives, but also that, if you guys are not aware, those are the situations that will happen, and basically you do have to kind of create a thick skin. And as shocking as it was at the moment, because you kind of, okay, you're shocked with the whole situation that all of a sudden someone else decides for you, decides whether your work goes on stage or not. And if you don't know the reasons, then you cannot really work out a concise decision, and then it's a whole chain reaction. As you know, everything that is behind a show, it's not just the fact that we arrive on stage and we create a show and the audience enjoys it, and then we get to all have fun and share time together and then have a hang or a Q&A or any other experience with the audience. But what happens behind there's a multitude of people that are running it, people that are responsible for it, people that pay for it, people that operate the show, lighting, sound, hell, makeup people as well, that they know that they have to clock in, do your makeup so that you can go do the show. So all of a sudden, when the show is unplugged, I don't have to mention what happens, but a whole mess happens. So basically, this is one of the elements of everyday life, to be honest, where you are faced with a agreement, disagreement, with conflict sometimes, and you just kind of have to suck it up. What else is there to do? You just kind of keep going, and if you can sort it out, it's great that you don't hold the grudge and you sort it out. If you need to take unfortunate further measures for the situation, then do those in your favor. But it really comes down to relations with people, because it's a business where we are not isolated as we are now. Like, nothing operates in a solo kind of situation. All elements are connected. It's always like a natural organism, to be honest. It's a huge establishment in the sense of what happens in between. So let's say, coming back to the situation where, let's say, your guitar player is just too hungover to leave, and then you miss your train, and then you miss rehearsal, and then the organizers have no idea what to kind of do and how to navigate the audience and the programming and all of that. That creates a lot of unnecessary problems and frictions and stress for everybody. So why go through that, basically? And sometimes you need to make decisions where you need to end a collaboration. You need to end working with someone. You can still stay friends. You can still stay connected. But whatever it might be, I can give anyone advice that is young and coming into this rock and roll world and into the performing arts business, that basically, if you have to sacrifice too much of yourself, your energy, your work, not to mention money and other resources, and it's not quite worth it, then you just got to reconsider. You just have to think about what is good for you down the line. And I'm not talking in the very egoistic sense, but you really need to see how to be an adult in a situation, and if the person that you're working with is an adult as well, because of course it comes down to mutual respect and mutual, time and resources. And if you do create something together, like a stage show or a piece or a song or a jam, whatever it might be, you do invest, like, all of you, all of the elements included. So sometimes it does happen that people have false intentions. Sometimes they think that they want to get something out of it for themselves, kind of behind your back. And there's multiple situations like that, and quite honestly, too much people in the industry that are not necessarily honest about their intentions and what they're doing. But that's a completely different story. So you just have to acknowledge that these things will happen, and that is the performing school of life. That is nothing that you ever learn at any school, at any college. No one really tells you that in a class or in a program, and quite honestly, they should. This is exactly why I also do these performing mentorship programs and classes that I kind of do the same thing currently, Zooming in or Skyping in, where we do talk with students about these things, and young people and young artists that want to do what we do, but they are not aware that it's not what the poster shows, or not what the cover shows, or what the final YouTube video is. And it's good to realize at a very early age. Like, I started when I was 6, and many decades later, we are actually at anniversary year 4 for Rock Dance Theater. So again, I wanted to thank you guys so much. As we know, nothing happens without you guys, without the support, the audience, the viewers, and the fans, and everyone that kind of says, yeah, this rocks, this is super cool. And also the ones that say, this fucking sucks. I love that. This is exactly this kind of extreme, says that I've done my job well, because I love extremes. I mean, there's no grays in the middle. Like, gray is a cool color, but when it comes to kind of reaction, it's love or hate, either or. And that's the best kind of. It means I've done my job well, and quite honestly, don't think what other people say, because there's always somebody that's going to say, I'm not a fan of what you do, I don't like it. And that's fine. It's just an opinion. So that, I guess, could be another interesting element that might bring a tear to your eyes if someone says that they don't appreciate your work. But hey, there are many of us. It's like, listen to another song, listen to another performance, stand up, live show, rock dance theater show, whatever. There's plenty of to choose from, and to be honest, satisfying everybody else but your inner kind of feel and your expression, your ideas, your ways to communicate, that's kind of a trap in itself as well. So again, if you're young, and I don't know why I have this young attention spam today, I think it's quite because of the fact that I've been doing a lot of educational kind of talks and educational classes, and also, quite honestly, isolation makes me think and reflect and make notes and write down memoirs and books, and bring up stories that I think are worth telling, and especially the non-glam side of it is called reality, and the reality of the performing arts is not as pretty as we would like it to be on the cover. So I wanted to give you a little bit of insight on that. So thank you so much, guys, for listening, for tuning in wherever that might be around the planet. So I do appreciate all of you guys along the years, and also tuning in today. Thank you so much for stopping by on a Friday. And I guess see you on chapter 2, which is going to be April 29th. So already save the date, same time, same place. My surrounding might be different because it's not going to be the apartment where I was listening to Dream on for like 7 hours and then, okay, let's play the guitar. It's going to be most probably at my current studio where I'm residing, where all of the cool guitars kind of hang. This background, this actual room, is actually the pre-rock dance theater era, the Anna Achimowicz era, like 2015 and back. So even behind me, I have records like Herbie Hancock, acid jazz compilation, and what else? Marlena Dietrich, and soundtracks from Cool, from games and movies and all kinds of stuff that I was in. Pre-rock, like, let's say 150%. So that's kind of funny. I'd realized that just yesterday when I was setting up, like, hey, wait a minute, this is this exact room when it happened. And on my left side, I was literally staring out of the window when the sun was coming up, and yeah, it was pretty cool. Steven Tyler coming up and kind of knocking on the door and handling over the rails to rock. So thank you so much, guys, for all of your rock. Remember to stay positive, stay safe, and stay sane, as I say. And as always, until later.